This video is how to chart vital signs in ADLs and safety and intake and output. So when you're looking at this screen, let me move it back, you're going to be on I/O/I flow sheet. Now that is where you're going to do the majority of your charting. Basically, it is everything is in cells and it's just a flow sheet. So if you can chart on vital signs and pain, you can basically chart on everything else. So if I did a vital sign at 8:35, you'll notice I don't have a place for 8:35 here. If I right click on the actual time, I am going to see actual, which I could put in at the actual time that I did it, or I can go in intervals, or I can insert a date and time. I'm going to insert a date and time, and when I do that, I can type in 0835 and hit enter, and it creates a column. One thing that's always important to note is that whenever you're getting ready to chart, you're always going to want to double click on your time. What that does is it opens up each section. So each section now has a check mark. If I were just to hit the header, it would open up just that section only. And if I were to hit nothing, I would have to double click in each cell to chart, which is going to double your time of charting. Now you'll notice over here I have vital signs, pain, PCA, etc. Let's see what else down here. IV drips, post sheath, all of those are this color right here. That means that they're going to show up on the right hand side over here as a header. Now if I wanted to do an orthostatic, I don't have one on here, but if I am in the live environment, I would have orthostatic, and I would click on orthostatic and it would open up orthostatic over here for me to chart on, because I don't do it every single on every single patient. So now we have a temperature Celsius right here. You'll notice that that is in blue. Most of your thermometers should switch over from Fahrenheit to Celsius. If not, you can always click on this any blue lettering and it'll give you a reference text. In this case, it gives you a table to show you what from Celsius to Fahrenheit, a conversion table. So let's say the patient has a temp of 37.1, that's 98.8, but we're going to go ahead and put 37.1. So we're going to say that they had a temp of 98.8, so we know that's 37.1. Once I've done that, I can either hit the tab button or I can select the next section with my mouse. I'm going to hit the tab button. When I do that, it then converts my temperature for calculation. So that's another reason why it's important to open up each section by hitting, or opening up each section by hitting the time, because opening up each section by hitting the time ensures that every auto calculation goes through. Now I can go down and I could actually click on oral, or I could hit the letter O and hit the space bar and it would select oral automatically, and then I move on to the next section, and I could do 87 as my heart rate. I could tab, or I can use my mouse. I could hit palpation. I could hit the letter P, or I could select it and hit the tab button and so forth. So that is the basics of using the flow sheet. Now if it's in purple, you can always right click and clear. It's not part of the permanent record yet. If you go up here to cancel, you can cancel it before it becomes part of the permanent record. Now if you're ready to sign it, because everything inside of Cerner is signed, you would hit this green check mark, and by hitting this green check mark, it turns it from purple to black. Let's say that you realized you charted on the wrong patient. What you can do is you can grab all of your charting through like an Excel spreadsheet, right click on a piece of charting, and then you can unchart. When you do this, it does stay part of the permanent record, but it does happen. So if I drop down, I can choose incorrect patient, and it will choose incorrect patient on every one of them. And if I hit sign, it'll automatically put in error. If I wanted to go down to intake and output, if you're just putting in intake and output for oral and not IV, then you would go down here to this intake and output real time, and it's a lot easier to go over and put in your stuff, because it's just going to have all oral intake, versus intake and output is going to have all of your IV fluids in here as well. And the charting is the same when it comes to each of these sections. Now there are three places that are actually different, and those are lines, drains and tubes, and incisions and wounds. And those are what we call dynamic groups. And so with the dynamic groups, we'll actually click on the lines, and this would be where you would pull out an IV or discontinue an IV or start an IV. For this video, I'm not going to go into it until we get done, or until you move on to the next semester, and then you'll actually be using this piece of charting.